faith-based. If you're faith-based, you're based on purpose. If you're faith-based, you believe this is where you should be and this is how you should work, and you're based on purpose.
Someday you'll know. Someday you'll know.
Today's the day, the sun is shining, the tank is clean. The tank is clean. Dad's here. Gotta go get good old Dad. Hopefully he's in the right place. So today I will be interviewing my parents on just basically what their 20s look like. I wanted to kind of get an idea of like what their 20s look like. My stepdad is from a different generation from both my parents, so I was really interested to have his input into this interview. So as my parents talk about a lot of things that they went through and their perspectives during that time frame in which they were growing up, please just be respectful of things that they talk about. There's a couple of things that may be a little bit controversial to some people, so I want to keep an open mind. If you're interested in hearing my parents' story, please, I encourage you to keep watching and be respectful and be courteous. So I forgot to put down the extra questions that I asked.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Is that thing is not in the way? Oh, because the camera's this way. I'm just looking at it. Oh, okay, cool.
What did the outside world kind of look like when you were in your 20s?
The world was still, America was still America, unfortunately. There was still a lot of cop killings for black Americans that just weren't caught on video. But still a lot of stuff happened as far as police brutality in those years.
That's an interesting question because life didn't start in my 20s. You know, life started for me. I was born in the 50s. So I had to go through pre-civil rights, civil rights, post-civil rights. So I graduated in high school in 1975. So I went through the 60s and the civil rights, and we actually had race riots in our town, and which caused me to, you know, have a real negative feeling against quote-unquote the system and white people, etc. And so by the time I was 20, which would be like 1980 or so, I had already formed my opinion as to what life was really about. When you're in your 20s, you really don't know anything, but you don't know anything. Going into the military at, I guess I was 21, 22 years old, kind of gave me an idea of what life was like outside of the United States, because that first time I got on a plane, first time I got to travel, first time I got to go, you know, out of the country, and I got a different viewpoint, and it totally changed my viewpoint from my teen years, because I was such a militant. I had actually attended Nation of Islam courses. I actually signed up as a communist, a communist organization. I was just so dead set against anything that had to do with the system, white people, government, so and so, so and so. So I had to change my way of thinking, because now I'm in the military, which is constitutional. You have to, you know, get along. You have to swear that you're going to uphold the Constitution in a country that I really didn't believe in at the time. And during the time in the military, before I got out and got on the fire department, I had to just change my way of thinking, because I actually was exposed to groups of white people and foreigners and different things like that. So it totally flipped my my attitude about things. You know, and of course, you should change who you are mentally between your 20s, 30s, 40s, and I'm in my 60s now. So I've changed every 10 years. I've kind of made a big change in who I was.
That's way more exciting than me. Because in my 20s, right, I was raising children. So whatever was happening in the world around me, I wasn't really too aware of that, except for like maybe what came on television. But I was raising children from 21. My first child was born at 21. So I went right into motherhood. And then my second child was born, 24.
Who's that?
So it just, and then Stephanie came 15 months after you, and then Craig came 22 months after her, and then 3 years later Sonia was born. So my 20s, I was a parent, and I was just trying to figure out, you know, how to keep children alive. Really, seriously, how to keep children alive, homework, IEPs, that's really what I was doing then, trying to keep a roof over our head, trying to figure out who I was in relation to my children. So, and also, figuring out, like, we were very deep into the church, trying to figure out what was going on there, So in my 20s, they basically went by real quick because I didn't know who I was, and I didn't even have really a chance to figure out who I was because I was parenting, which was cool because I was a mom, but aside from being a parent, people want to know who they are.
What were the things that you learned growing up that society taught you that adulthood should look like?
I don't have any recollection of what society taught me as far as that's concerned. I only have it because of my parents. My father, he's always been a guy of hard work. So a man goes to work, he works hard, provides for his family. He never actually said it. I mean, he just led by example. So he always worked hard, did whatever he could to take care of us. My mother always led the example of being a helpmate. So whenever he needed help in any area or anything like that, she was always by his side, no matter what. They showed me what adulthood should be like. Getting married, taking care of your family, raising your children. Those things were more important. Like I said, the society part, I guess, would be like get education, get a good job, and retire. It's just this specific road, this narrow road. You go here or you fail, basically was what they believed. So it seems like we're getting farther and farther away from people really being able to develop who they are in their 20s, and more towards this is what we want you to be. Even if the best preparation you still don't know, because you can still be really prepared to handle your 20s, and then you go through your 20s and there's so many things that come up that you just haven't experienced, and experience is the best education for a lot of the things that you're going to go through and come up upon.
My parents' generation was a little bit different because it really was weird that, like, my mom and her friends and even my dad and their friends, they weren't married. And so the generation that I was born in, all the adults who were like my mom, my cousins in that generation, they weren't married. They didn't have husbands. Their parents did. So my grandparents were married, and they had been married. Both sets of my parents were married, but my parents weren't married. My parents weren't married to each other. I was a result of a teenage relationship, and my cousins weren't married. So I didn't see like a family structure that way. I will say that my goal was to kind of break that cycle, to get married. And so I did end up getting married. But I didn't have anyone, who was technically raising me to show me how to do that. So I had to kind of figure out my own way. And I've always done that. I decided to just kind of be different as well, because there was those things going on that I didn't like. People smoked pot and things like that. I didn't agree with that. So I kind of built my own kind of life around. I did the opposite of what I saw growing up, if that makes sense.
So the project environment I grew up in was a little bit of a challenge, but I grew up with parents. But the paradigm in my neighborhood was mostly single mothers raising kids, and the guys were involved in drugs and shooting and going to prison. And so most of my contemporaries, a lot of them are no longer here because they didn't have both parents in the home, and I think that really has an effect on my ability to be a parent, because I was always determined to be a parent, because I had a mother and father who took care of all 8 of us, and we're all still here, which in my neighborhood is kind of like a miracle. But the paradigm in America has always been, from K to 12, you're in school, then you go to college, then you get a good job, you work until you're 65, you retire, and they give you a package or they give you a watch or whatever they do. And I found that, as far as I'm concerned, that's not the way everybody should go. It should be more individualized, because some people should have gotten a trade, should have become electricians and plumbers and masons and truck drivers, because that's the way it actually really worked out. A lot of people can't handle college. I was a really smart kid. I did well in high school, but I dropped out of college because I couldn't stand being broke. So I became, a professional fireman. So, it worked out for me because I have a pension better than a lot of these college people is concerned. It's just a shame that we live in a country that really a world that tells you that's what you're supposed to do. All right, suppose you don't fit into any of that. What do you do then?
Yeah.
How do you use your creative spirit to generate money in your head? Because to me, the people that are generating the most money in this world thought up their money.
Yeah.
They weren't part of a system that told them how much they can make, what they can do, how to retire, when to retire.
I guess career-wise, where did you see yourself doing in your 20s?
Well, halfway into my 20s, I was in the military. The other half, it was just trying to survive the job. And now I had been threatened with being fired, several times, like all the black guys did, Well, you'll get fired if you do this, so on and so on. So it turns out that wasn't actually true, because there were civil service rules that we didn't know about that would not allow you to be fired as easy as they led us to believe. So my 20s was spent military half of it, the other half just trying to survive.
Anything creative. Years ago, before I had children, I used to say I wanted to be a lawyer, but I didn't go to college. But then when I look at it now, I'm glad I didn't become a lawyer because it doesn't interest me now. We say that when we doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's because that's what our family says that we should be, whether we're from here or someone else. Culturally, they think that that's status. And so I'm glad I didn't do that, and I learned a lot from my life. But I was able to do a lot of creative things, and that has kind of led to where I'm at now. And I encourage people to find out what it is that they like. So even when I was home, for a while I did stay home with you guys, right? I stayed home with the children, and I was able to use a lot of those creative outlets as part of like my homeschooling and everything, but also I was able to turn those things into small businesses. So I've always wanted to be a creative. I've never wanted to sit behind a desk, even though I did that for 12 years. And be a full-time mom, but then able to delve into really dive into those creative endeavors, and I had to, because money, I need to make money.
Everything that you went through kind of fell onto us in a way, because you guys went through what you went through, and you couldn't really navigate life the way that you would probably go back and navigate it now. You instilled that knowledge into us so that we're able to explore, like how you were saying, you always wanted to just do creative stuff, and I see that with myself, and in a way, I know you don't regret having your kids, but in a way, I'm happy that I don't have kids now, because I get to do that, and then when I do have them, they're just an added joy to that. Everyone's just trying to, I feel like the 20s are figuring out who you are and what you want to do. And sometimes if you try to rush adulthood during that time, it's kind of hard with figuring out who you are, but you also have a family to take care of and things like that. Everyone just kind of goes through experiences, and I see that with my own life too, with my mental health and the things that I went through with that. That's my story to share for someone else, even if it's not my kids yet. It's for the younger generation, so they can see what I'm doing. So I see that in the things that you guys went through.
No, I actually agree with that, and I talk about that a lot with the community that I have. That I totally don't regret that I had children, because I learned a lot. That's where I get my multitasking, and I'm able to do this thing and do that thing. That's what kind of solidifies my managerial skills, because people don't realize that a lot of things they're learning from home and what they're doing. How do you navigate 5 children to get to everything they need to get to, between doctors and dancing and basketball and soccer and all that.
Especially when you have 3 back to back.
Yes, 3 back to back, and then everybody's involved in different things, so you have to figure out how to get everyone everywhere. You have to make sure they survive. You have to make sure they're eating and clothed and clean. So that is really has to be structured, so people don't think about that they're already building some type of foundation, regardless if they went to school. So the single moms or the moms that stay at home, don't take away from the fact that you're doing something, because you are. Everything that you do is valuable. And so I also want everyone, whether you go to school or not, to do something that's actually going to help you make money, and not only make money, but make good money, so that you can set yourself up for the future, because that was not taught to me. And that's Thomas and I, that's a big thing for us now. We want to make sure that everyone does that. I get concerned, because college isn't the way. I know plenty of people who have businesses that are more successful than the people who are in school, because the people that I know have gone to school, even my age, in their 50s, still paying off student loans.
What piece of advice would you give like people in their 20s now?
If you spend your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, into your 60s in debt, buying cars, doing things that you don't need to do, it's going to be a nightmare when you get old.
If you can just stay out of debt, just take care of the things that you need, have a comfortable place to live, put money in the bank, and also invest and start preparing for your future. Start preparing for the children that you don't have and the life that you want to live in 30, 40 years from now. And just make, the best choices that you can. All the things, and don't rely on other people to tell you what you need. You have to figure out what's going to work for you as an individual.
I think the important thing is in your late teens and your early 20s to really find out your purpose and what you really want to do in life. It's okay to take risks and it's okay to make mistakes because you have the rest of your life. I think what something, maybe in society they teach you this, they put you on pressure and pressure this, when you get to 26 you should be like this, you get to 27 you should get to 30 you should look like this. Well, it shouldn't look like anything but what it should look like for you. So happiness is the key. Happiness is number one. Make sure you got your mental health in order, as far as because I went through that later on in life. I didn't realize that depression, anxiety, all those things happen because you have all these expectations what everybody else thinks you should be, and you're always worrying about what other people think, or how even your parents, what my parents going to think, or this or that. And you should really just be focused on you, your inner work, finding your spirit, finding yourself, and finding out who you are and what your purpose is in life. You find out what your passions are, and then you are able to create that happiness and keep that happiness for the rest of your life.
Whatever you desire, I want you to have. Good stuff.
Something that I noticed, that even though my parents separated when I was a kid and my stepdad came into the picture around the time that I was 15, my parents generally have similar views, or like similar ways of viewing the world and how they view the world, and advice that they would give to people now. So I'm really blessed to have the parents that I have, because even though they only taught me what they knew and they were only able to give me information based on their experiences, I still was very blessed to grow up with the wisdom that I was given and the foundation that I had growing up in my family. And even though my stepdad did come into the picture later in my life, he did come in during crucial years of my life as well, to what shaped me to be who I am today.